Hey, it's your old pal Slim, and welcome to a very special bonus episode presented by 70mm. With me, as always, is artist Danny Haas.
Hello.
And our spiritual advisor, Protolexis.
I'm trying to decide on which note to read. I mean, I always go to the bathroom naked on an airplane. What's the big deal?
We'll get into it just around the corner. This is the last temptation of 70mm month, holy month, religious month, beyond month. So why not cover the biggest, quote, the biggest and most ambitious Christian film ever made at the time of release? It's got a 16% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow.
Not great. 1.6 on Letterboxd, I think.
Does that beat the Dune threshold?
I think it's, we'll have to see at the end of this episode if it meets the Dune threshold. But I'm talking about Left Behind the movie, Proto. This is the big one. 2000, Kirk Cameron. This changed everything when it came out.
Everything. Where were you? I don't know how many books were out at this point. I should have done some research.
That's right. This is based on a book series. Is that true?
Yes, there were. I was looking it up. There were 16 books written.
Oh my gosh.
What?
And I have. Should I get
Christian
into this
Dune.
right now?
Please, let's
I
talk
need
about
to
it.
hear more about this. We need to educate the people on this direct-to-video movie.
I can remember when this was first mentioned. So it was I'm looking at the first book came out in 1995. The last one came out in 2007.
Okay.
And I think I remember my older brother getting a copy of the second book called Tribulation Force for Christmas. So that would have been like 96 or like 97, I guess. And my dad was like, "Oh, the Tribulation Force." And I'm like, "What is Tribulation Force?" But that was the first time I had heard of the Left Behind series. And then I went on to read them as well because my dad would buy them all and read them all. I think I made it up to
Book 30.
maybe book 7, The Indwelling.
God.
But it could have. Well, actually, now that I'm looking at this list, there's book 10 was called The Remnant, and that's ringing a bell. After that comes Armageddon. I don't think I got to Armageddon.
Armageddon.
Oh, baby. I mean, yeah. There's the Soul Harvest. Book 4 was a banger.
These could all be amazingly. These also sound like Dune book titles. These could also be. This is like Christian Dune, I guess, is what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, what was brilliant about this series, I mean, this was like a phenomenon when this came out, these books. And the thing about them is that they're very digestible as a novel. The way they did it is there was a dual author. So there was Tim LaHaye and I think it was Jerry Jenkins. One of them was like the Bible scholar. I think that was Jenkins. I could have them mixed up. So one was like the Bible scholar who kind of like knew the ins and outs of the end times and what to put in there. And then the other guy was just like a mercenary author, like a writer.
Mercenary author. My God.
He could just like pump these books out. And they were like fun books to read. Like they were just like action oriented. So I ate them up as a kid. But I think once I like caught up to them, and then it just kind of got overwhelming to keep up with, these books. It's like, I'm on book 10 now. Am I going to keep going with this? So I fell off, but they were a huge deal growing up. Then they came out with a Left Behind Kids series. I think I actually started with that, and I read those as well.
Buck Williams was our Harry Potter.
Yeah. And our Indiana Jones.
He kind of looks like Harry Potter a little bit. Yeah. He looks like an older Harry Potter, minus the glasses, I think. Got the hair for it. Talking about Kirk Cameron, living legend of everyone's youth. Maybe not everyone listening's youth, but some of us old heads.
Youths.
Do you remember the books, Danny? The Left Behind books? Were they handing these out at church?
Yeah. Every time you got baptized, you were handed a Left Behind book as you resurfaced the water. I remember it being some sort of talking point from the pulpit at some point, but I never saw the movie, and I never read the books because I was a jock. I don't read books. at the time.
You can't read.
Thank you.
I didn't know how to read then. I knew one letter and it was on my Letterman jacket. But
Dumb. So dumb.
but every time I think of Left Behind, a local church here, every October did a thing called the Judgment House. And so instead of Halloween houses, they did their own version of like a Halloween house in the church. And it was a huge production. Like they spent like 20 G's on it. And one year they did a themed where it was a crashed airplane. And I don't know why Left Behind makes me think of this, but they had like a quarter of a crash Boeing 747, and you'd walk room from room feeling like with actors, and like it was literally like a Halloween Horror Nights but for Christians to scare you into believing into Christ. And you'd go into a room and you'd be in like hell and be heated to like 100 and something degrees with people screaming and pitch black, and this is what Left Behind reminds me of for sure. But it's a weird side of Christianity.
Yeah, I was trying to think back to when this had come out, what I was doing. I guess I hadn't graduated high school yet, so I was still in like Catholic school. But I just remember always hearing about like the rapture, and like one day everyone's just all the good people are going to get taken up to heaven and you're going to get stuck on earth like a loser while everyone else is living the high life up there, whatever that meant.
You still got time. After the rapture.
I also remember, around this time, maybe like Kirk Cameron, I don't want to say like pariah, but choosing a side, like he's going to like embrace, his religion and kind of like focus on that for his work. I just remember that being kind of like a talking point around the release of this film, or maybe after, to a point where like I don't remember hearing about other actors in that way. And the only other thing I can really think of is, Tom Cruise with Scientology.
Right.
That like consumed his persona, his public persona for years, for a while. And now it's just kind of like gone, and he's back to being the superstar that he always was. So Pardo, what's Left Behind about? What's this thing? It's on YouTube for free. So just jump in there. It's also on Vudu and a few other places.
So Left Behind is about the impending rapture of all Christians, those who believe in Jesus Christ. And problem is, if you are not a believer, when the rapture happens, you are left behind. So that's what happens in this show, where the all Christians have been removed from the earth, and we're left with just the unbelievers to kind of make sense of the world. But the problem is, the Antichrist, he's coming. He's on the rise. So we have Buck Williams, who is a local news reporter, but also international news reporter, and a global figure of much importance to everyone at the UN, apparently. He has the connections. He knows how to get the beefy stories. He's left behind. He's trying to make sense of it. There's some kind of conspiracy going on with wheat. An Israeli scientist has developed a wheat that can grow in the desert. Big deal. But there's dark players in the background who are trying to make money, these bankers. So that's an angle that's going on. But then we got this other character, Raymond Steele, who's a pilot who's been left behind. His wife and their son have been taken because he didn't take it seriously enough. Let's just all be honest. Him and his daughter left behind. He's trying to make sense of it. So they run around for a while. Him and Buck meet in an airport. They're on the same plane together when the rapture happens. Just a bunch of clothes left all over. The amount of piles of clothes in this show.
Nude rapturing.
The dress code in heaven is nude. And then at the end of this, Buck thinks he's helping by uncovering this plot, but what he finds is that not only is the Antichrist already here, he is about to take power in Nikolai Carpathia, who commits murder in front of Buck, but because he is now I guess he's I forget what the whole deal.
PR liaison to the UN or some such.
Yeah, but he has like I guess he has the aura of the Holy Spirit protecting him from the wiles of the Antichrist, so that he can see through the lies and deception as the Antichrist kills a guy, but then convinces everyone in the room that something else happened. And that's the end of the first part of Left Behind, part 1. That's where we're left. Did I miss anything?
Part 1 of
Final
100.
thoughts and ratings.
Danny has had enough already of Left Behind the movie. I actually didn't even catch the guise of the Holy Spirit protecting Kirk from seeing, fakery. And he was kind of seeing through the Antichrist.
Through the veil.
Carpathia with maybe the worst accent in film history. I don't know what was happening. I thought he was a German emissary to start the movie. The breathing in the scene. The microphone was in his nostril through that entire scene where they said they uncovered this evil plot. If I have the time, I'll loop in some breathing, but it makes me sick that nobody fixed that in post.
We move forward. We announce the sharing of food with the world, and the building of this Jewish temple is a symbol. Not just for Jews, but for every man and woman, for the whole of humanity. This marks the beginning of our 7 years of peace.
Also, by the way, I think we're dropping this on Good Friday. What better way to celebrate,
God
those
bless.
Christians with listening to our Left Behind episode?
We appreciate it.
Right off the bat, we'll play it loosey-goosey in this format. I didn't think it was that bad. I
knew you were gonna say this.
Everyone is saying worst, terrible movie, bad movie. I mean, it's bad, but I was pretty entertained during the whole thing. 1.6 on Letterboxd. I guess maybe the Christians aren't on Letterboxd for the most part. The devouts. So, I mean, that's just my vibe. So I don't know. Perno, what did you think watching this?
Yeah, I honestly didn't think it was that bad. I thought it was entertaining enough. The thing is, it didn't get bogged down. It didn't feel like a slog to watch this. I didn't feel bored. I wasn't necessarily maybe fully engaged.
Right.
But I wasn't bored watching it either. I was trying to think of it. I was this is it's kind of like a made for TV movie. I mean, it's a movie. It was released in the theaters. And I'm trying to compare it. I was thinking of other things we watched. I was it probably has worse production value than when we did the first X-Files episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nuts to think a movie in 2000 released to theater is worse than a TV show pilot.
Dude, I think it was made for, I think it was direct to video, but it did get a limited theatrical release, probably in churches or some such to give it a theatrical release.
Probably. It was funny because I was most of the time watching it, I'm thinking to myself, Kirk isn't that bad of an actor. He was really pulling it off, and I was actually not terribly turned off by his performance. If he wasn't such a chode, I feel like he'd be probably in more things these days. He was pretty good in this.
Kirk Chode Cameron, his friends call him. That was the Letterman's jacket he had. It was the letter C. Also, we were talking about the wheat, but maybe an obvious Interstellar homage from Left Behind, discussing how they can potentially save the planet with this, wheat scheme.
Just like Cooper leaves his children behind. We'll get into it.
So stay tuned. What jumps out at you on this viewing, Danny? You hadn't seen this before, right?
No, I hadn't seen it before. I think it's just in 2001, I would have been just starting college. And so I think I'd have been too cool for this kind of stuff then. But I never got around to it. And then it just was not ever going to be on my radar to watch. But what jumps out at me first was, honestly, the beginning of this film, the air raid attack on the wheat fields in Israel was shockingly bad, but it was kind of fun to watch. I don't know why. And then I was just there's a military grade bunker under this wheat field as well that they could that they could retreat to at any moment when they're attacked, but also they were shocked to get attacked. It was so weird. I couldn't get over it. And then just everyone enamored with Buck Williams. That was just so funny with me. The line that I wrote down was, Buck Williams, he would have filmed at Hiroshima from ground zero if he had been there. Yeah, that's our Buck.
There was like a whole minute of everyone just saying how much they love Buck. It was like when The Simpsons introduced Poochie. They're like, when Poochie's not on screen, everyone needs to be asking where Poochie is.
Yeah, that was just, the whole beginning of this film was bonkers.
Yeah, the CG, the green screen stuff, the special effects were horrific. I mean, maybe for made for TV that was acceptable around 2000, but now it doesn't hold up so well.
Yeah, there was like tanks rolling through, and it looked like footage taken from the Command and Conquer video game series. Like they could have just pulled a cutscene from that, and I would have believed it.
Admittedly, I kind of tuned out when Carpathia was on screen during like a few of his first scenes, like the quote unquote the Antichrist. So I actually had to go on like the Left Behind wiki because I didn't feel like rewinding to rewatch those scenes. I just like Googled Left Behind Carpathia. And then the first result was Antichrist. I was like, oh, fudge. I guess that's probably an important point coming later in the movie. But I couldn't tell like what he was, like what his role was. So the Left Behind wiki said that he was like the president of Romania and then eventually started getting in with the UN. Is that accurate? Did I read that correctly? Does anyone remember?
I don't know what he was. He was just a person
I thought
in
he was
power.
like a PR guy to start the movie.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. Yeah, it showed him like, it seemed like kind of feeding like, people who were hungry, and everyone's like, oh, Nikolai, what a great guy. What a great guy.
Yeah.
And that's really all they kind of gave you in the movie. Okay. I don't really remember from the books.
Yeah, the wiki, I couldn't tell if it was like the book wiki or the movie, but it had a photo of him from the movie, and it said that he assumed power in Romania and then eventually kind of parlayed that into eventually what happened in this movie, like taking over pretty much. Pardo, what jumps out at you for this viewing?
On this viewing, yeah, there's like a lot of small details. I guess I have a lot of things, just like small stuff written down. But I mean, I love, anytime old computers are on the screen, I love it. I love the very first shot is they would have the text come up on the screen, but it would have it like, they would have like a typing sound like, and it was like, Jerusalem, here we are. And already a banger, like right off the bat.
Those graphics were also terrible. Like every time they showed a location, it was like the worst quality graphics.
I love the scene though, where Kirk he goes to meet his reporter friend who told him about this story. He's got like a hard drive inside of his watch, which was pretty rad.
That was cool.
So Kirk gets that. He runs to his computer. He logs in. And then there's an assassin with a sniper rifle outside the window. And he's like pointing at Kirk. But then he decides to shoot the computer instead. And then it seemed like intentional. Like he assassinates the computer. And then he assassinates like all different kinds of objects in the room, it seemed, to get, Buck to run away. But I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, I couldn't tell if they were saving Buck for the right time. Because then remember, he meets up with that other government guy and they were about to drive off. But the older homeless woman who didn't look homeless, she just looked like someone's mom who'd needed cash, stopped Kirk from going to the car and the car exploded. And then you see the bartender from that bar just looking ominously at the exploding car, yes, that was my plan. And then you see the old woman. So I couldn't tell if let's kill everyone but Kirk until the moment is right. Do you think it was just the Holy Spirit? Which is this is a silly sentence I just said out loud. Should we end the show after I just said that? I'm sorry, everyone. Oh my God. So do you think the Holy Spirit was protecting Kirk during those scenes and that old woman was the Holy Spirit, or they wanted to save Kirk? The Antichrist wanted to save him until the time was right.
The Holy Spirit moves through people and it's hard to say. We can't pin down the Holy Spirit.
Right. Unpinnable.
I vaguely remember, I want to, unless I'm making this up, but I think they were trying to protect Buck for whatever reason. Like she's in on it. Like because there was always in the books, there was like these characters who would come in and out who were like double agents for the bad guys in their sphere, because they start like this, they call it the Tribulation Force, where it's like these undercover Christians who are like left behind, who are working, but then there's like evil forces that they're fighting with. It kind of unfolds like an espionage spy story more than anything.
I just had to Google tribulation.
Does
never heard a word outside of this book. A cause of great trouble or suffering. I'm trying to like find
trials
a
and
synonym for
tribulations.
tribulation. Like, was there not a cooler name than Tribulation Force?
It's a good
Guess
name.
not.
That's a good.
There's
That's
such
like
a-
Space Force.
So they should have called it the Space Force. Let's see what's on my list. I had worst accent in history.
Mm.
The stewardess. The stewardess
Mamma mia.
on the plane quits her job. She's having an affair with the pilot. That's page 1 of the Not Get Taken to Nude Heaven handbook.
Correct.
And she tells the pilot, like, I'm quitting. I'm joining the UN. That's my next job. What a pathway.
She
Has
did
it
it.
ever been done? What's her
Thanks to Buck.
backstory? Every answer could easily be like the Antichrist wanted this person at this role at this particular time, yada, yada, yada. But like you go from stewardess to UN emissary almost overnight. And because Kirk had given her like a glowing recommendation, but like, what's her work history? Let me see the CV. Can I just get a job at the UN and work as the Antichrist emissary and right-hand man?
This is what people did to Jesus, Slim. They question his work, his history. Why does he, a carpenter's
Is she Mary
son,
Magdalene? Is she Mary
get to
Magdalene
be
in this story?
the Son of God? This is deep stuff, Slim.
You call it coincidence. I call it divine intervention.
Get me out of here. Get
Well,
me
let's
off
talk-
this ride.
I mean, the fact Buck Williams, he's familiar. He rides. Now, is this a thing? If you rode the same plane, would you be familiar with the flight attendants?
Yeah, that was weird, right?
Yeah, they're
So the fact
BFFs.
He's buddy with this flight attendant who also is having an affair with the pilot Raymond Steele, who's another character in this. Then she goes to work at the UN where Carpathia is. And then Raymond and Buck meet up and, become friends. I mean, Buck is sleeping on Raymond's couch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So
that's,
this isn't coincidences.
yeah, it can't be.
Chode Williams sleeping on that couch. How about the pilot? His complete 180 into being a devout Christian after.
Oh, yeah, baby.
It was like the next morning, he is deep into reading the Bible. The Bible is impenetrable. He's turning the page. You can see through those pages. That's how thin those pages are. You're talking font type 1. That's how small the lettering is. And he's carrying around with him. I couldn't believe how quickly he was like in it. He turns the stewardess emissary away. It's like, be gone with you, you harlot. I've changed.
I'm a different person now. I
His
can't
wife's
cheat off
God.
my disappearance. Yeah, what's the rule there?
There's
is it
no rule.
Is it are you cheating on your wife if she
This
was
is-
raptured?
This is the end times. Where's the rule book for the end times?
Oh my God. I mean, at that point, you're not raptured. What's the point? Like, is there going to be Rapture Part 2?
Yes.
Like, what's the wave happening?
Yes, there is. There's 7 years, Slim.
I don't know. I mean, you have her come to your doorstep. Your family, half your family is gone, and she comes to your doorstep. Yeah, maybe we try to, let's see how this goes. Give me a few
Salvage.
weeks. I need to figure things out. My life is over.
We got some time till
Yeah, we got some time to figure this out. You don't need to go to the UN right away. Also, how about the taxi being a military jeep for her?
Yo, yeah.
Are they just taking over for
Martial
the
law.
taxi service? It's nuts.
Mm-hmm.
What else on my notes here? The Backstreet Boys music. I mean, what
Well, that's +1.
is that? The band? My God, horrific.
Dude, this
I went to
soundtrack,
a
what band.
+1 concert at Carpenter's Home Church.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I went to that band's concert.
How did it
And
go?
Who else was on this Michael W. Smith.
Third
Day. Bob Carlyle. I mean, LaRue. Joy Williams. I mean, this is a banger Christian soundtrack. This had to have went silver, platinum.
Silver plat.
whatever that is.
Wow. Triple silver.
Third day, baby.
Third day was a banging.
I mean,
bang.
the music is all over it. Like,
Mhm.
it felt like I was watching Smallville almost in terms of like the dated
Yeah.
music.
yeah.
Because there's one scene where Kirk Chode Williams like has his moment, was like, oh, was I wrong? God, are you there? And he's like in the bathroom, like crying. And that's when he has his moment.
The bathroom is the best place for a man to get saved.
Yeah.
Right in a stall.
Danny, what else you got on your list? I know you might not have had a ton.
I loved is a word, but the rapture scene is great on the plane when the old lady is sitting next to the empty set of clothes that her husband was wearing, and she just assumed that he got up and undressed and went to the bathroom. Like, that's funny.
How was she on that
stuff.
plane in any capacity if she thinks her husband got nude to use the bathroom? Was that the same homeless woman for later in the movie, you think?
Oh,
Oh,
I
interesting.
mean, we're talking about these characters being everywhere together later. That might have been.
You're right.
it's
Interesting.
not coincidence.
I liked
No.
the storyline that the pastor didn't get raptured. Thought
Yeah,
that was
that must have
interesting.
blown minds at the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
Everyone's
What's in
shaking.
what's really in your heart? Your heart
Yeah.
of hearts,
Mhm.
deep down.
Well, didn't he have
Yeah,
a
I thought-
family? He had a family too,
Yeah,
right?
they're gone.
Yeah. He was
But he
the
could have
only
been
one.
with the stewardess too. I mean, martial law.
Jesus, are you listening?
He got owned. That pastor got owned by God. He devotes his life to God. He's saving people left and right. You know,
Yeah.
caring for his sheep at this church,
Mhm.
and then God leaves him behind.
Mm-hmm.
What a
That's
waste
raw.
of time.
It's in the
What an
title.
absolute waste of time. Is it revealed in the book that he was also like doing bad deeds on the side, Proto? Was that Reverend character? You know, was he
I
like
don't remember.
This is the
doing
Christian
card
church,
games?
not the
Was he a
Catholic
card
church.
shark or something? Oh my God. I liked when the bad guys who were planning on, you know, coalescing all the like miracle wheat into a certain area and then like, I guess, bankrupting the UN. What a silly idea. But how about when they're like, the rapture happens and they're like, are our plans still, you know, on track here? And then the guy's like, yeah, strangely enough, all our operatives are still in place. Like, yes, none of your evil henchmen got raptured. What a coincidence. Also, they weren't even really thinking any religious aspect at all when the rapture happened. Like, they thought aliens.
Yeah, that was
which,
interesting too.
which I thought aliens was probably, I mean, it's got to be either Jesus or aliens. And the story that they go with is radiation. Radiation.
It was never like, oh shit, the Christians were right.
Yeah. I feel like that would be like explanation number one, probably, if this were to happen.
When, Slim? When it happens.
Enough. Lots of breathing in the scenes. What else you got, Pardo, from your list?
Well, so I've seen a bunch of these like Christian movies. There's I don't know what the name of the studio, but even in the past 10 years, they've been pumping out these
Weinstein Studio.
Christian drama movies. And they sent around a couple, or there's one, what was it called? There's about a football team.
Remember the Titans.
Something Giants or something. I can't remember
Little
what
Giants?
it was called. But that was
I know
like a
exactly
huge
what you're
deal.
talking about.
Yeah. But all of these movies, they follow like a similar formula where somebody's got to get saved. Oh, there was another one, God's Not Dead. That was huge too.
God's Not Dead's massive.
But they, whatever the story is, they always come back around to having some like really dramatic conversion scene. And we get a few of those in this. Raymond gets saved, which has probably had my favorite shot of the show is
The
when
lighting
he's
on
like
his
in
face.
the room. Well, he's got the Bible and then there's the mirror and he throws the Bible at the mirror and it cracks. I was like, dang, that's actually a pretty good shot. Yeah, and Kirk getting saved in the bathroom stall. But you gotta have those scenes in these types of movies where they just kind of like they turn up the drama to 11. They fall to their knees, the music gets pumping, and you get saved. They get saved, and you probably get saved too.
How many people in church were weeping at these scenes? Seeing
the
Kirk
altar.
in that bathroom, losing it.
Maybe the common fact isn't those who were taken, but those who were left behind.
It doesn't. That line doesn't even make any. That doesn't make any sense. The inverse is still true. But the rapture happens. Let's see if I have this here. Actually, did the rapture happen yet? No. One of the news guys talks to Kirk. He's like, "Hey, Kirk, Europe and Korea standardized their currency. Bizarre, huh?" That's the biggest news story in the last 100 years, probably.
Yeah.
Like these other areas combining their currency. Let's dig into this a little bit. See what might be happening there. They didn't even care.
They didn't care.
They didn't care. Let's see what else I have. The Reverend. The pilot and the Reverend kneeling together. Oh my God.
Oh, yeah.
Wow,
Powerful.
so thick. My
Powerful.
God. I won't live without faith anymore. I won't. The pilot. Calm down. It's day 2 after the rapture.
Listen, this is what happens. You turn your life around in day 2. You are Jesus's number 1 fan.
Why wasn't Kirk
riding
taken?
high?
I was like confused why it just seems so weird. Like at a granular level, only Christians get taken.
Mm-hmm.
All Christians who believed but are still pricks get taken in the rapture. They just have to believe. You know, like so in theory, I mean, what percentage of those are bad people? What percentage are like good people? Like Kirk, Kirk was doing some good work. Maybe didn't believe, but like, come on.
It's not about the
like
works.
It's about being covered in the blood.
There's nothing you can do to earn the love of Christ.
You know how many bad people go to the church and they're up there in nude heaven living it up? I don't like it. I don't like it one bit.
Playing by God's rules.
We're going to have an altar call at the end of this podcast, Slim.
Stay tuned.
Anything else, Bruno?
Well, just kind of, this whole idea in itself is brilliant. The fact that they wrote these books, because within, and I can only speak from my experience, but I think within the church, the end times is like, it's incredibly fascinating, right? Because it's something in the Bible that hasn't happened yet. And it's full of all kinds of like really interesting. I mean, if you read the book of Revelation, it's pretty BA. Like it's really cool, like the stuff that's in there and the way it's described, but it's like uses a lot of metaphors. And there isn't like a clear interpretation. There's a lot of theories about what the end times is. Like it's called eschatology, if anyone's interested in like, there's like a belief that we're already in the end times. There's belief that it happened like right after Jesus went into heaven. There's belief that it's like coming in the future. There's belief like that we're in certain periods of it, and there's like 1,000-year gaps and all kinds of stuff. So like growing up in the church, like no one would really give you like, oh, well, this is what it means. Like I remember our pastor going through the book of Revelations, and he played it very conservative of like, all you really need to know at the end is that God wins. He's like kind of dropping those lines on us. So to have a book series that comes out and saying like, this is what's going to happen. Like, here's an interpretation. And what they did is they really took it and made it like almost as literal as not. I mean, some stuff you just couldn't make literal because it talks about a beast coming out of the ocean with 7 heads and stuff like that. But they take all of those ideas in the books and make them represented in some way. So as you're reading these, you're just like eating them up. So it makes total sense that like this series exploded and that they would go on to make these movies. It does really interest me if they could, actually make them like a real production. Like if this got like real Hollywood backing.
I was thinking the same thing. Like the unraveling of like the Antichrist and how it's tied into various books of the Bible, and Kirk like piecing it together over time, like, or like his help with his new faith friends, the Tribulation Force, the Reverend and the pilot, and they're like, oh, this is from book of whatever. Like I thought that stuff was pretty cool. And I'm actually like interested to watch the sequel just to see how it unfolds. But I know they made a new one with Nicolas Cage, but this does feel like it would probably make a lot of money if they made like a legit production. And them just like making a potentially direct-to-video Nicolas Cage version makes me think that the same people have the rights, and they're probably not going to like go full Hollywood and make a legit production of this. Can you imagine like the money behind like a Passion of the Christ behind something like this? Like this would be the biggest Christian movie of all time, I feel like, and series. Like I said, it's like their Dune or whatever. Pretty interesting to watch. Jesus
is our Messiah.
Tell that to Dune Pod. Tell them not.
No, you.
Not me. Anything else, Danny?
Hold on, I closed my notes to look at the Nick Cage movie. The line, "No one has more enemies than Israel." That's about it. What's your
rating? What's your rating for this?
It's funny. I didn't have a bad time, but I do hate this form of outreach, I guess, for
propaganda.
Non-believers. I don't enjoy the like turn or burn method of scaring people into believing into Christ. And I feel like that's what this kind of movie and this kind of stuff kind of does. Not that the book series is probably enjoyable. It is fun to read about. I mean, it would be an interesting read, I think. But I didn't really have a great time. So I'm gonna sit at 1 star for this.
The Dune line is now in much question, right?
It
is
we need 2 5-bangers.
It is a bit triggering. I mean, this is not a form of Christianity that I enjoy anymore. So,
what was the new like ad campaign too that came up during the Super Bowl? Remember that one? It was like Jesus something.
Oh,
it was like they had this like millions of dollars at marketing campaign to try to get people back to the church.
Yeah. I don't remember. It was something where they spent like 30 million instead of ads. Giving 30 million to charity or something.
Yeah. I'm at 3 stars. I had a fun time watching this. I'm not going to beat around the bush. I do think there's like an interesting conversation to see on film and like maybe even in real life. Like, can you imagine like living, I'm speaking as myself, like living that you don't know what's real out there. And then like this happens. I mean, you could be emotional putty for a very long time. Like let's assuming that like, oh, wait, Jesus is real and all my family is gone and I'm left. That's some pretty heavy stuff. So I'm that kind of like conversation and like that scenario is pretty fascinating to me. So I had fun. 3 stars.
You're going to have a lot to think about when this happens, Slim.
Be living the high life down here, no rules in town. Everyone's gone.
I had a good time too. I'm at 2 stars for this. I'll give it 2 stars. It kind of just had me reminiscing about the books. And it's funny, whenever I think of these books, I think of 2 instances. And this is like one reason where I think it'd be interesting if they actually, really did make these and make the whole thing. It would be great as like a TV series, honestly, because there's so much content. Each one of these books could be a season. But there was 2 things that always stood out to me. There was a scene, I think it's in this either the first book or second book, where Buck Williams, like they're getting attacked, like someone's coming into the house, and Buck, it's described in the book that he's like on the stairs and he goes and he punches this guy in the nose and like crushes, the way it was described, it was like he crushes his nose into his face, into his skull, and he kills the guy by punching him in the face. And I remember reading that and be like, can you kill somebody by punching them in the face? And then the other thing is,
you're not getting raptured after that. You killed a man, right?
You might be off the list of second rapture if you kill a man. I don't know if that's, immediate void. The second thing is, so the character, we didn't really talk about him, Rosenzweig, the scientist, he plays like a pretty prominent role in this series. And this is a spoiler if you plan on reading it. But at a point, the Antichrist, he dies and he rises again. So the way they explain that is that Rosenzweig knows he's like a bad dude. So he develops this blade that the end of the blade is as thick as like a single molecule, so that like you can't even see the blade. So he he's like on stage with the Antichrist and he like has it hidden in like his coat or something. And then he goes and he like stabs him with this blade that he developed that's like as thin as a single molecule. And I remember reading that and be like, this is like the craziest thing. Like what? But there's all kinds of stuff like that in these books. So it's just like nuts.
Wow.
So good times. Good times.
Good times. 2 stars. All right. That's Good Friday for everybody. The Last Temptation of 70mm. You know, as of this posting, let's see, we will have recorded Interstellar with former producer Ian, and we will have heard what Danny's pick is.
Oh, gosh.
As of this moment, we don't know what that is. Could be anything.
As of this moment, I'm locked.
You're locked.
Wow.
Locked.
I want to kind of remember VeggieBucks.
Oh yeah.
Protos developed that supercomputer who allowed betting in our Discord. I want to put some money down on guesses, like for picks. That'd be pretty.
That'd be fun.
Can it be done? Maybe by next Good Friday.
It can be done.
Beeger will rise again. We'll see. All right.
Maybe I can get Goldtoe. I hear Goldtoe's writing Discord bots. Maybe he can.
That's true.
Can
Chat GPT revive V'ger?
What if, Proto?
Whoa. I have to look into this.
All right. That's a special bonus episode of 70mm, first in a while, and we'll see everybody on the next episode. $70mm is a tape deck production featuring original artwork provided by Danny Haas. Spiritual guidance and V'ger, the robot who loves movies, provided by Pertalexis. Producer at large, Dale_A. Transcripts provided by Sophie Shin and music composed by Cinematric. Prints and other merch are available on 70mmpod.com. This episode was mixed, edited, and produced by me, Slim. Support our Patreon for access to our VHS Village Discord to talk movies with new friends, access to our exclusive episodes in the 70mm vault, discounts on merch, uncut episodes, and a physical membership card mailed to you. To check out other Tape Deck podcasts, find the link in the episode notes. And if you'd like to support our friends at Letterboxd and upgrade to pro or patron status, you can do so with a 20% off discount using the links on 70mmpod.com. Goodbye.
This is a Tape Deck podcast.